And let's go now to the former Trump White House lawyer, Ty Cobb. So, Ty, what is the impact of Ivanka's testimony today as you see it?
I see it as totally inconsequential and perhaps a tactical error by the prosecutors because they didn't get any evidence in that they didn't really already have. As you said, the documents really spoke for themselves. Now, there was a little theater, of course,
Right.
but I'm concerned, as a former prosecutor and somebody who believes, you can't, just because of Donald Trump's big lie and his crimes and the many tragic things that he's done and the damage he's done to the country. You can assess him one way, but I think fairly have to assess each of the other individuals associated with him, on their own merits. And I don't think Ivanka added anything to the evidentiary circumstances that
So, Ty, do you think
government
they just should have, they
had.
could have introduced those emails and done that without her testimony? As Andrea is saying, the things that prove that the rates that were being offered for loans were 9%. And then in comes Deutsche Bank with this miraculous 2%. And they're like, giddy up, let's go, don't ask questions.
Yeah, exactly, because that's exactly what happened. The chronology is they went through the real estate group and tried that route, but as you pointed out, there's a separate division for high wealth individuals. So they went that route. They got better terms. The negotiations over the net worth, that was clearly laid out in a series of emails. And I think, as I recall, one of the emails between her and the lawyers, she was content to leave it at 3, and the lawyers negotiated it down ultimately to 2.5,
Yeah.
which is, of course, what you would want, in order to maintain flexibility in the event of a market crash or a liquidity issue. So it's not unusual to negotiate that term. I guess
Right.
I'm concerned only because I look at what Trump's real goal here is, to turn this into
Political scapegoating.
political scapegoating, and his insistence that this is part of a witch hunt, and he's being unfairly attacked, and the fact that she really didn't add much. I'm afraid that sort of feeds that theme. He'll certainly use it that way, and I hate to see him get away with that. So I didn't view anything she said as particularly significant legally, and I'm concerned that the politics of it, may favor Trump and his attorneys' efforts to pretend to be victims.
And to your point, Ty, the point that you're making on that, obviously the way she handled herself is very differently than how Trump himself handled it. As Andrea was just pointing out, Letitia James made the comment about Ivanka's performance before she even did her performance, right? It was so on brand. It was so consistent. Okay. Cordial and polite.
And then she criticized her afterwards. And I have to say that's playing from an ethics book that, as a former prosecutor, I'm not familiar with in the middle of a trial.
Well, do you think Trump himself learns anything from the way Ivanka handled herself? Obviously, it's very different than how he handles himself, but he's going to be back on the stand again next week, of course.
Right. Yeah. He didn't learn anything. I mean, he doesn't have Ivanka's intelligence or discipline in my own view. And the truth is, the interesting thing is, there is no evidence, and they presented her with none, that she actually was involved with the financials. So the fact that she doesn't recall being involved in the financials, seems to be consistent with the evidence. Now, Trump himself admitted actually reviewing some of the financials and making changes. And that was a stunning admission that I think is very damning and legally very consequential. So I think I don't think you'll see Ivanka again in the case, but I'm sure you'll see Trump and his and several of his officers and directors.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting, but I just hate to see him get away with playing the victim, which I think today gave him an opportunity to do.
All right, Ty Cobb, thank you very much.